It's the 19th to the 22nd of November. You're planning here.
I love this place and I want to go anywhere else.
Anyhow, right, okay. Let's see. The request for leave of absence be approved. I move.
Yep.
Thank you, Cody. All those in favour?
Aye.
Motion carried. Declarations of conflict of interest.
Yeah, around agenda item 6, the events funding round. It's not been approved in the agenda item.
All good?
And I have one on the item.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to note that I am appointed as a commissioner on the RCL landscape schedules.
I am for item 7.
Yep, item 7. Yep, and yeah, and I suppose they're the trustee of our Film Festival Trust, which is potential recipient of the grants funding as well, the CLM funding.
Right.
Take your guidance on that. It's been an existing one, it's declared. I imagine there's no particular.
I think potentially there's nothing involved. I would probably, it's your choice obviously, so I would probably count that you should still work that one.
Yeah.
I suppose the same question would arise from how we deal with community fund allocations then to...
If you're a trustee or a member of the board or anything, yes, you should acknowledge that outside of council. Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, I will then acknowledge that I'm a trustee of 3 trusts, well, 2 trusts that potentially get allocations for the community fund, the ACDT and the Upcliff Tracks Trust.
Okay. There's one on the table. There are no matters lying on the table. Special announcements. There are none. Public forum.
To be honest.
Usual 3 minutes. Time is yours.
Today's potential is tomorrow's possibilities. Today is a milestone for the Queenstown Lakes District. One hot Tuesday back in February 2023, we gathered to discuss how to get a strategy rolling for this district. Today before you is a strategy that represents hundreds of diverse and dynamic voices from meetings in all corners of our district, from living rooms and cafes also. Importantly, it honours our role as Takatiti, people of the treaty, and supports Te Ao Māori. It was developed in partnership with Katahu. Today in Ngatariki, a time we reflect on our past and we look to new beginnings. It is a wonderful time to start a new chapter for creativity, culture and heritage in this district. For Te Atamira, your arts and cultural centre, the strategy enables a healthier and wealthier district where recreational activities and economic opportunities abound. It puts our district on the national cultural map and recognises us for creativity. It builds on decades of work by volunteers, the vision of many, with special mention to our founders, Abby and Carol, who have enabled a bold vision, shared a deep knowledge and generously all their global networks. It enables a regional arts office to advocate, lead promotion of the creative sector locally. It connects us with adjacent industries, Tech Queenstown, the climate and biodiversity, the economic forums and Film Otago. It joins dots, links and leverages all the wonderful strategies that QLDC has developed, policies and plans that are in circulation and development. It fosters diversity, creative endeavour and the future thinkers and change makers of this region. It helps our community understand our identity, who we are and the place we stand. Today before you is thousands of hours committed by your executive and your community, co-creating a vision to help this place and us thrive. As I've said previously in this forum, art is our one true global language. It speaks to our need to reveal, to heal, to transform. It transcends our ordinary lives and lets us imagine what is possible. We, Te Atamira, endorse the strategy. Please today enable the vision. We are here with you to make it happen. Make today a wonderful day. Thanks so much. Some tough questions. I'm getting faster.
We'll leave it there. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, second we have Alison Price from Wakatipu High School, but I think Gavin is...
So I'm Alison today.
Yes, you are.
Kevin Boucher. So Alison unfortunately is very unwell, so I'm stepping in for Alison today. So
I'm going to get 3 minutes, it's all yours.
okay, I'll read my statement. So Alison is the head of the Arts and Music Department at Wakatipu High School. There are many reasons why arts, culture and creativity are vital for our young people, and we'll briefly explain the importance of the proposed strategy. Creativity has increasingly been recognised as a key skill for the future to help people adapt and thrive. When considering career pathways, our young people creativity is vital. According to the World Economic Forum, creativity has ranked 5 in the skills needed for the workplace by 2025. According to 2021 UNESCO roadmap, the creative sector employs more workers aged between 18 and 25 than any other field of employment. Alison was fortunate enough to be involved in the youth component of the strategy development, where she worked with Samantha at Three Lakes Cultural Trust to help facilitate community and academic input and also ensure alignment with the WH Arts Vision and Strategy process. It gives Alison confidence that with the implementation of the strategy, that cohesion across the youth art sector could be realised. It also enables youth to have input into the art scene, giving them a sense of ownership and involvement. It supports career development and the vital skills for the future of our youth. When considering well-being, a term that has been somewhat overused in the past few years, there is no doubt there has been an increase in mental health issues in New Zealand and abroad. Summarised in the NZ Arts curriculum, by participating in art students, personal well-being is enhanced. Through the use of creative, intuitive thought and action, learners in the arts are able to view their world from new perspectives. Unfortunately, this role cannot sit solely with schools, and as many institutions are struggling to have a strong presence due to the variety of factors. The role of the community to support, complement, enhance youth access to a range of quality arts experiences and learning is necessary to encourage creative and critical thinking. It needs to be holistic. It needs experts in the arts fields to engage with our youth. And most of all, it needs a clear sense of direction for the future that includes the necessary structure and actions to ensure it is sustainable. These are apparent in the proposed strategy. Our local population is diverse, which is well reflected in the demographics of Wakatipu High School. This strategy allows culture to be celebrated and fosters inclusive practices that honour mana whenua, takatai whenua, and ultimately all who live here, including minority groups such as the LGBTQIA+, neurodiverse and differently led people. I wholeheartedly, Alison I should say, wholeheartedly, and I do as well, passionately, support Te Moka Toi, Te Moka Takata, and excited about the future of creativity and culture in our district, if it is endorsed today, which I'm sure you will help us with.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Pass
Kevin.
on to Alison. Get well soon. Right. Pierre. All yours.
Kia ora koutou katoa. May was the 12th month in a row to break temperature records. We are now at 1.63 degrees above pre-industrial average and climbing. Summer in the northern hemisphere has hardly started, but the world is already experiencing record heat waves. India has experienced record temperatures heights of up to 52 degrees and minimum nighttime temperatures of more than 35 degrees. The same is happening in the US, where the now usual heat dome is settling in and where the fire season is already in full swing. In Mexico, it is so hot that monkeys are literally falling dead from the trees. And apparently human tourists in Greece can cope with the heat either. 6 of them are already presumed dead in the Greek island after only a few days of heat wave. Here, the East Coast is flooded again, while Canterbury is still in a drought. But don't worry, everything is normal. Or so it seems, considering the lack of reactions to this news. So what are the world scientists saying about the situation when asked of the record? Well, they express their fears and frustration. 77% of them think that we will get past 2.5 degrees and 42% think that we'll get past 3 degrees of warming. I hope that you understand that these temperatures will destroy everything worth caring for. To quote one of them, we live in an age of fools. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, isn't either one to pull back his punches. He recently said, in the case of climate, we are not the dinosaurs, we are the meteor. We are not only in danger, we are the danger. But we are also the solution. In the same speech, he called for a global ban on fossil fuel advertisements. Why? Because we are the ones burning fossil fuels. The real crime of the fossil fuel companies isn't the extraction. This crime is shared with their consumers. The real crime is the lobbying and the misinformation they've pushed for decades to stop the transition to sustainability. And the customers are the ones who have paid for these campaigns of lies. In New Zealand, 70% of consumption-based emissions are caused by households. We have already talked about the easiest action you can do as individuals and support as councillors, which is to boycott fossil fuels. Now that was the easy part. One of the next steps is to reduce your waste. It is a vast topic that we won't fully cover today, but we want to make you aware of a leading program started by the town of Roubaix in France. They are creating waste-free communities by training 100 volunteer households each year in tactics and knowledge to reduce their waste. Now, of course, we have great organizations such as Wastebusters who are doing similar work in Wanaka. But the difference is that in Roubaix, it is an official effort to reduce waste. The results are monitored and the learnings are passed on to local government policies, while our waste reduction ecosystem is growing around that program. We will send you more information about it, and we encourage you to create a similar program in our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Confirmation of the agenda now. QLDC has asked for their item, so that's the SOI, to be first in the meeting. Rather than change the order of the published agenda, it is recommended that the order be altered under confirmation of the agenda. So, saying that, so that the agenda be confirmed with item 3 becoming item 1 and all subsequent items following in the published order.
Happy to move.
Thank you. Now you've got one mover. Seconder. Thank you, Quentin. All those in favour? Aye. Motion carried. Confirmation of minutes. So we've got 2 leave events.
It was the 3rd to the 9th of December. 3rd to the 9th of December.
And then the 18th to the 24th of July.
Sorry, 18th to the
18th to
24th. Right.
Just to clarify, were they stored but not recorded, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had the 9th, sorry, the 9th to the 12th of July.
Okay, so I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Queenstown Lakes District Council held on 6 June 2024 as amended be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder? Nikki, all those in favour?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 1, previously 3, Queenstown Airport Corporation Statement of Intent, page 91. Council papers. Over to you, Megan.
Thank you for the short seat. Whamarea, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to Matariki Week. Thank you, councillors. I will take the item as read, although I just wanted to reiterate that we have been on quite a journey with this. Thank you for your mahi. We started last year workshopping the SOE. We adopted the SOE in December. We moved on to an SOI, a draft SOI. We had a public workshop for the first time on the draft SOI, and we are here today. We did feedback to the QOC, and I have noted that feedback in the report, and you have a track changed or highlighted changed version. which is public, which is a response to the letter that the Mayor subsequently sent to the QAC. I do just want to acknowledge today that we have representation from the QAC in public forum, and I'd like to welcome Board Member Simon Flood. So without further ado, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, councillors?
Pick it off. Thanks, Mayor. Just a question about the report and the options analysis. Just wondering why under option 2 do not agree with the SOI. There's not an option to, or it doesn't indicate that the process would be to not adopt it but to request changes, because the disadvantage says that we won't have any input. My understanding is, sorry, I don't need to keep talking. So just wondering why that's not made clear in the report, the option 2.
The board has adopted the SOI, so today you're being asked to agree it. You can either agree it or not. In the event that you choose not to agree it, we would then need to reconvene and work through what seeking modifications to the SOI would look like, and that would be a subsequent paper to council.
Thank you for clarifying. I do. It wasn't actually, it was probably more for Simon than for Megan. I didn't know Simon coming to the table.
No. Okay.
Do you have any knowledge of when the board will be coming to speak to the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee to discuss the gateways?
Yes. So the board has committed to bring a paper to the October Audit, Risk and Finance Committee.
Right.
That will be based on the Master Plan Investment Program. That will be to seek the approval of that committee on the milestone and exception reporting framework.
That's great.
Thank you. I have a mover. Thank you, Lyle. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Barry. Open for discussion.
I just wanted to kind of highlight for anybody here today that the SOI covers the period from 1st of July 2024 to the 30th of June 2027 now. It used to be annual. It's now 3 yearly.
Apologies if I may just...
Sorry, SOE.
SOE, apologies.
Yeah,
Thank you. I think you said SOE.
Yeah, I did say SOI, sorry.
Okay.
So it's just important, I think, for the public to be aware that that has changed, and that was agreed to on the 14th of December. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that at all.
All that I would say in regard to that is, yeah,
It's not a question.
Yeah.
you can seek an SOE at any time, is all I'd say to that, if you agree to it.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to know that.
Yeah, look, I just wanted to acknowledge, I mean, as we know, this has been a battleground for many years. I think we struggled this year to find significant fault with it, which is a testament to how far we've come over the years. It's not necessarily perfect in everyone's minds, but in everyone's view, but it is a representation of the collective view of council and the QA, working with the QAC. And I think, you know, as I said, we've come a long way. There's those points of conflict are significantly less than where they were a few years ago, and we should be pleased about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Chair. Look, I just want to sort of echo Quentin's comments. Look, I'm not comfortable with the SOI because of the content, but given that the master plan has been endorsed, I think it's a quality document, so thank you for producing a quality document. I guess for me, I'd like to point out, because it doesn't seem to be dealt with anywhere, that, at least for me, and I'm imagining I'm speaking not out of turn, that our risk appetite is fairly low given our debt limits, and we can't bail out the organisation, QAC, obviously, so we're putting significant faith in the board to ensure that we get those dividends as forecast, because it's an assumption in our long-term plan that they come through as forecast. we don't want you to put the organisation or the QAC at risk for that, but I guess for me, I'd like the investment plan to make sure that it doesn't put those dividends at risk. Obviously, all our shareholdings, so just making that very clear. For me, we're agreeing this SOI in a context where we're seeing tourism growth, and that's causing massive pressures in our district. From housing to emissions, we've got peak capacity requirements, and they're all causing cost, and we've got ratepayers that are struggling to pay their rates. We've also, while we're bringing in, enabling more tourists to come in, we're also funding a lot of programs that try to deal with the pressures that causes, or the effects that causes, and so we're sort of enabling the problem at the same time as we're funding the solutions. And given the pressure on people, and given that we're at our debt limits, I don't think now is the right time to be investing in tourism growth. So for that reason, nothing to do with the quality of the document, which is great, but because of the content, because we're enabling tourism growth, and because it's causing pressures, I can't agree with the SOI. Thank you.
Discussion? Oh, okay.
Yeah, just through the chair, I'd just like to make a comment briefly, if I can, please. It's just good to see the continued lens on the Yarranmore heritage buildings, even though it's small print, but I put no weight on the small print comment. It's just good to see it still as forefront and centre of this report as well. Thank you.
Just a quick one.
I'm going to, just before, because once you speak, no one else can speak up. I'll put it to the vote. Okay. Say. Anyone else want to? Lowell, take it away.
Yeah, just briefly, thank you for the work that we've done on this. Got to realise that the Queenstown Airport is so strategically and economically important for our whole district that we're now having such a great working relationship with QAC and getting this SOI, the master plan over the line. I think it's a major achievement, and there's so many checks and balances in there we've got with the board of QAC that I'm quite comfortable we will be managing it and managing any risk as we go forward. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll put it to the vote. The resolutions are before you. We've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Aye. All those against?
Thank you. Can I have it recorded, Jane?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Right, back to now item 2, which is the old item 1. I'll stop saying that once we get into the swing of things. Page 61. No, 12, sorry. Long-term plan consultation document adoption. Caleb seems to have got a little bit older, but welcome to you.
Distinguished, I'd say.
More distinguished, more experienced, how about that?
I'd just like to acknowledge that this will be one Stuart Burns' last LTP, and I think that is a very important acknowledgement today. So thank you for all your mahi. Again, Stu will have some comments, but I just wanted to thank you for all of the hard work. I don't think the community realises that we start working on this collectively. We certainly did more than a year and a half ago. We have a steering group, which is full council, that sits down and works very hard on setting the direction of this document. And then we had the added complication of extending and deferring the adoption back in February until today. Just to reiterate that in the event that you do adopt the CD and supporting document, submissions will open tomorrow, and we did have a number of changes, a schedule of minor changes, nothing material, just to confirm that amended CD and supporting document is now the correct document on our website. So just wanted to point that out, particularly for media, but anyone who's chomping at the bit to look at those documents. And we will have hearings in late August, and they will be asking you to adopt the LTP in September. It has we are very, very pleased that it has a clean audit opinion, and that was shared with the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee on the 11th of June. And the last word from me, and I'll hand over to Stu, is I would like to acknowledge that I can't think of any other LTP that has been so challenging for staff, and a number of them are here today, and it's really important that we do acknowledge the incredibly hard work that they have put into this, frankly, right up until this morning. So thank you to them, and that is, certainly goes right across a number of divisions of council. Stu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Megan. I have had a number of LTPs under my belt, but this is quite clearly the most difficult one to put together. It's required a lot of work and rework. The financial elements of the LTP have had to pivot on the basis of changed legislation, with 3 waters being now required to be included for the full 10 years. But the overriding difficulty is really the economic conditions that we find ourselves in. So high inflation, high interest rates, and escalation in capital projects. So it has been a real challenge to achieve a balance in that regard. Staff and councillors have worked well through those issues, and there have been a number of steering group meetings that we've really had to prioritise our expenditure. So the capital expenditure for the first 3 years is really completely made up of must-do work, and we have reduced that spend from what it was originally in order to make sure that we deliver a balanced budget. So I think we've done the best that we can in the circumstances. It's not an easy thing to propose a rates increase of over 15%, but in the sector that is mid-table in terms of the range of rates increases that we're seeing. So Queenstown is not alone in that issue. So we're very aware of trying to minimise those increases, and where we can spread them over more than 1 year. So I acknowledge the work of the councillors and staff in getting to a point where we've actually more or less balanced the budget over the 10 years. So thank you, and happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Just before you take questions, I do actually want to acknowledge you, Stu. This is your last one for Queenstown Lakes District. Appreciated your advice over the last 18 months that I've been sitting in this hot seat, and I know this LTP has been particularly challenging. I think we can all agree to that. My staff have been exemplary. The work I do know that they've been up to late hours of the night and into early morning working on this, especially when the 3 waters curveball got thrown to us and the financials had to be changed rather quickly. So I just want to congratulate your team for getting to where we are now. Look, councillors, this has been tough. Let's not sugarcoat this one. It has been quite a grind. I've called it a meat grinder when I've talked about it in public. And I think when I look back to the LTP and the COVID times, I thought that was a bit strange and a bit odd and a bit tough, but it's got nothing on this one. So with that, I'll open for questions.
I've got a really simple one to kick us off with, perhaps. Thank you for all this work, and the steering group meetings have been just such a deep dive. I think it's testimony that there's probably not a lot of questions that staff were still responding to last night, so thank you, Stu, for that. The capital investment district-wide spend, we're looking at 2.44 billion, 60% of that being 3 waters. So often our community's asking what's going on. Love the dashboard where we can deep dive. My simple question is, can we keep the dashboard beyond the consultation as an ongoing live tool, so that wherever you live in the district you can filter what's planned for your area? So are these great tools you've developed for the consultation document going to be available to our communities as ongoing windows of interface with the organisation.
Can't see any reason why not.
No issue with that at
Something
all.
we could build on. Yeah, and thank you. I think so many of the visuals and things that you've given us as tools to explain this will be really useful. I encourage anyone listening out there, get online, have a look at whatever's going on where you live. You can get into these dashboards and really drill down. So thanks for extending that.
Just a quick one through, Chair. Under the key topics, I'm just trying to question the reason and the appropriateness of putting preferred beside one of the options in a consultation document.
I think that is a preferred presentation method by the. I think we have to take a position so that we can reflect that in the document itself.
The document reflects the assumption that the preferred options will be actually achieved, so therefore any alternative will be a modification to the.
So you say option 2 couldn't be achieved?
Yeah, it could be a change from what we've presented by way of the detailed plan.
Option 2, the options presented both through you, Mr. Chair.
No, I just wanted the use of the word preferred. It's just sort of, once again, we get criticised for putting up, saying it, sort of telling us what we think the option should be, rather than then hear back from the option. So, but it's just really around that word. Or you say option 1, that is what all the workings are based on. I don't know.
That's the accurate disclosure.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a few. The first one is, could you, and this is not for me, this is for people watching, could you explain the process for including maintained levels of service in the baseline? How did we arrive at that's it and we're not questioning levels of service? I know some have dropped, but we haven't investigated reducing levels of service. I just want some clarity for everyone listening on how that was arrived at.
Through your steering group process.
So through closed workshops.
No.
I'm just wanting some
It was
acknowledgement.
through discussion
It wasn't,
with the council.
it wasn't through a meeting. That's great. I just wanted to clear that up. Second question is around, sorry, I need my glasses. The economic futures and commercial property section, the targeted rate across that is large. And I'm assuming that's to do with the targeted tourism promotion rate. That's not mentioned in there as far as I could tell, but I could be wrong there. Is there a reason that we haven't made that clear in the work of the economic futures, sorry, in the economy section? It's a large contribution to commercial rates, but we haven't acknowledged that that's where that money is coming from, and that
It is disclosed elsewhere in the document, but if there's a requirement to update that section, we can do that.
I think it would be helpful because we haven't discussed it through the process, and it's just, I think it should be acknowledged because it is a large chunk.
Yeah, it's an issue. It's a status quo issue. It's well understood in the community.
Maybe for people who have been here for a while, but maybe not if they're new. The other one was around finance. Just noticed in the finance section, obviously all of the sections go through effects on the community and how we're measuring our performance. In the finance section, there's nothing there around risk performance and our performance in terms of managing risk. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Really? Are you talking about in terms of KPIs? Or?
Well, exactly, yeah. There's how we measure performance, but there's measurements for the various things. But risk, managing risk is obviously a huge part of what we do. We've had some, incidents where we probably haven't managed risk as well as we could, but there's no KPIs attached to that work, assurance and risk.
Well, the KPIs that are in the long-term plan are the outward-facing KPIs for our interaction with the community. There'll be plenty of opportunity to have internal KPIs that probably are better suited for measuring that function.
Leaky homes, sorry I've got a few, so I'm just rushing through them. Leaky homes, I thought I read at one point that there was an assumption that we weren't going to be funding them, and I couldn't find it again. Can you clarify what we've set aside for leaky homes provision?
We haven't set a provision for the current financial year because we're delayed. So that'll be something that comes through the annual report process, but it's much less than we've ever had to provide before because most of the larger claims have been resolved.
So was I right that there's an assumption that we haven't included money in the plan
We
for
don't
Legion?
provide budget directly for
Even the 20%?
settling claims.
Yeah.
Because that would be an obvious signal to any person that's claiming against council how much we have in the kitty.
But there's a 20% that is set aside?
Careful. There's a contingent liability.
But just that I read
written in
that there's an assumption that there's no money there, and that was a
Assumptions
concern for me.
in the long-term plan.
Okay. And the last question is just to do with the OPEX overruns in this year's budget. So last Audit, Finance and Risk Committee meeting in June, we had a $7.5 million unfavourable OPEX variance that I think the ERT was trying to work through. I just want some clarity around how that has been dealt with in this draft LTP. Is that 7.5 million or more or less captured in a budget line, or would that then become an extra when we go to session the rates?
It's not provided for in the LTP.
So
but
how?
in cash terms, it's likely to be offset by other capital revenue items. So if you're talking about the impact on our borrowing, it's not likely to be significant.
So, sorry, can you talk me through it a bit more clearly? The 7.5, it's an operational, so OPEX variance, so it has a big impact on rates. How are we dealing with that? How are we going to deal with that once this is approved?
Yeah.
How does this, the extra get dealt with in terms of rates? I guess my basic question is,
We would need to borrow to cover it, but what I'm saying is the actual cash deficit is not going to be as large as you're anticipating because of larger capital revenues that we have.
Okay, so are we able to borrow to cover that? Because I thought we had to cover our operational budget.
Well, ideally, you don't look to borrow for operational costs, but if there's an overrun, you may have to. We've had positive variances in the past, and that has had a favourable effect on our borrowing.
So it will eat into the headroom in the first year, is that right?
It could do.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Any further questions? Go Matt, then I'll go yourself, Matt.
Yep,
You put
okay.
my first before.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about consultation topic 1, which is targeted rates for Queenstown Town Centre properties. And thank you, Stu, for giving me a little bit of clarity around that this week. Basically, it's proposing 65% for the wider Queenstown CBD to pay for the arterials. I'm just wondering if there's an option there to, in 1B, to not adopt the 65% and the cost is spread across a wider rate base. Does that impact on the timeline to meet the 30th of September deadline for the LTP sign-up? If the council chose the alternative option.
Yeah, I think I understand what your question is. For 1B, the impact is not on this year, it's in the following year. So the arterial project is not completed. So the consultation topic really talks to how we will treat the rating impact of that project in the following year.
Yep. Okay.
So there are two options presented with the two rates impacts disclosed, both as if it was added to the CBD rate or whether it was spread across. So that'll be an option that will be consulted on.
Yes.
The way forward for us is to proceed with the CD as it's drafted, and that any feedback on that issue, council can take into consideration in the final decision in terms of that option. So if council decides that they want to fund that road, the local share of that road across the ward, then you can make that decision as part of your deliberations.
Great, thank you.
And so just to follow up, that would be done within the time frame for striking the final LTP.
So that will come in the next
Yep.
meeting. Yeah. Secondly, had a few conversations around town about if the council does adopt the 65% targeted rate for the CBD ratepayers, is there an expectation or precedent set that stage 2 and stage 3 of arterials would also then flag a 65% targeted rate for CBD ratepayers?
There probably is a bit of a precedent there. That's just for the arterial we were
Yes,
talking
just
about, rather
arterials.
than the street upgrade.
Correct.
Yeah. So, we'd expect that to flow through. Obviously, council can change its position if it wishes to. It's not something that's fixed in stone.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Might firstly acknowledge that, and we'll talk afterwards to make some other comments, but just to acknowledge that this has been really difficult. I just wanted to raise specifically development contributions, and I was looking specifically at the revenue streams that council have, specifically that we obviously have rates, we have user charges, we have leases, all sorts of different revenue streams. The targeted rates and the general rates increase significantly over the life of the 10-year plan because they both increase in their, they grow, but they also, we grow the rating base as well, so there's significant increases. The question really is around development contributions and why isn't there as much growth in the total revenue from development contributions over that time, and does that mean that development contributions take up a smaller percentage of the overall revenue of council over the life of the plan?
Well, as part of the development contribution policy amendments, we are looking to move to a position where we can inflate the DCs that are set in the first year, in the subsequent years until the next policy is updated. So that's something we haven't done before, but does preserve the value of those DCs as inflation runs forward. I think the analysis that we have previously shared with council does show there's a significant uplift in terms of DCs compared to our current levels, but that may not necessarily be obvious when you're looking at the 10 years in isolation of the LTP. So they have definitely gone up and they've increased significantly.
In recent years, particularly, you mean, as opposed to in the forward 10 years?
In the 10 years in the LTP, they are lifted, yes. But that's something.
But the total revenue,
that's something we'll review.
Yeah.
In the next version of the policy, make sure that it is striking the level that we want to.
Okay. All right. Don't have any further questions. I do have comments later.
I have asked you this, but just for the sake of other people understanding why, when the average rate increases 15 point something, when you look at Lake Hayes residential, that's the highest at 17.85. Can you just explain a little bit why that is?
Yes, it's largely to do with interest and depreciation in those schemes. Lake Hayes is one of the lowest paying schemes, I suppose, so it's a bit of a catch-up for that scheme, so those increases are higher for that particular scheme in the first 2 years. When you look at what they pay in comparison to other schemes, you'll find that there is now some equilibrium in that, so it's a bit of a catch-up.
Yep.
More than anything.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I've just got two or three. Firstly, I think this is a simple one, but on page 42 there's a paragraph here about the materials recovery facility. It says council is currently investigating site options for the new facility. Draft LTP includes 76.4 million across years 1 to 6 to continue this work. Just wanted to confirm that continuation also includes procurement, construction and putting it into service for $76 million. That's correct. Yeah, well, you could almost read it to say it just carries on the investigation part of it, which would be horrifying. Yeah. Rob, page 48, I've got a question there about the table. This is on the consultation document. So there's.
Sorry, could you give us a page number for the
48 on the consultation. Well, on the overall, sorry, on the consultation.
Oh, you might be
48 on the page. 31 on the consultation.
31.
Yep. So the lower table there, the only difference really is the CV goes to new CV, but the values are the same, but then the rate movements change. Can you just explain
Now, we have a set of sample properties that we provide the rates for.
Right.
Okay, so because we've introduced a proposal to introduce the new CBD transport rate, that means that CBD properties in the district are going to be different in terms of rates impact to those in the balance of the ward.
Right.
So we've actually replicated the CV values
Right.
that applied the rates payable, including the new CBD rate.
Right. Okay, no, that's right. So, yeah, so see the difference in Queenstown CBD as opposed to Queenstown.
Yes.
The valuations, similar valuations as examples, but the rates are slightly higher because of that. Okay, that's great. And then the only other question I had today was to do with sports turf rehabilitations. I think for Wanaka renewals and for Wakatipu, it seems to be an average of about 100,000 or just over per year. I just wonder whether that's what that actually provides, whether it's enough, and I guess people have the potential to submit on that, but I suppose what I've learnt in this process, and we've had lots of steering group meetings over the last nearly a year, going over all these different things, but the money is limited, so I guess if people are wanting to submit that more money goes into some things, it's got to come from somewhere else. And that's probably the difficult thing for people to understand is there's so many different project lines. Where does it come from? How does it affect that? But just in terms of that rehabilitation itself, where does the $100,000 come from, and what is it? You may not necessarily know, but what does it provide?
I can't tell you exactly what it provides. I don't think there's any downgrade in the level of service in sports fields, probably the opposite, and it's funded by the sports halls and libraries charge. So it's a fixed charge that funds that.
Right.
But I'm sure one of the community services team can come back to you in terms of what the level of service is and whether it's changed significantly.
It's coming back to you right now, Stu. It's right behind you.
Through each year, just picking up on the point, was it $200,000 investment into the sports building?
No, it looks like it's about $100,000 per year.
It's aligned to the contracts that we've put in place with Delta.
Right.
So we do 2 seasonal upgrades, one in spring, which is significant, and one in the autumn window.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily allow for any full field rehabilitations.
No, that's strictly maintenance. Picking up the worst of what's been thrown back at us at the end of winter, for example, scrubbing areas and other impact zones, and then making sure that it's treated in the summer.
So I didn't see, can I just ask one more question? One more. Is there anything in there that does allow for, I know, the field at the Event Centre was rehabilitated last year. Is there a program of rehabilitation of fields around the district?
So the actual upgrade, Councillor?
Yeah.
We've allowed for some consultation across both sides of the district to make sure we look at the investment of our existing sports field network. There's obviously got limitations again around the CLTP, but we certainly have. And one of the pressure points that we've identified is just if you grow, just bringing those sheer numbers of people participating, and how we actually build for the future as well. Which we've covered in the out years, not in the immediate trees. So what does that look like? Valentine Road, some of the areas of the Southern Corridor and other things to be realised for the future trend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Esther?
Thank you. Stu, could you just explain for anyone listening and for the media how important year 1 to 3 is, and what we mean by getting the basics right, and then years 4 to 10 and how that changes? I know it's a big question, but...
Try and summarise that.
Thank you.
Well, the legislation around the 10-year plan recognises the fact that although they cover 10 years, they only last for 3 years. So the first 3 years need to be in sufficient detail to act as annual plans in their own right. So they are developed to a slightly different standard to the years 4 to 10, which are more indicative. But we're still required to plan for them in that regard. So it's important that for the first 3 years we've got a clear idea of what we need to deliver. And in the capital space, we've had to really pull the program back to the projects that we absolutely must deliver. And that's where I think sticking to the basics comes from, making sure that the renewals program and the core infrastructure that our communities rely on are fit for purpose, and we provide enough capacity to enable us to operate comfortably. So to me, that's what that means. I don't know whether, Mike, you wanted to add anything in that space, but that's...
No, I don't think. I mean, the key thing for us is that these are documents that continue to evolve. So every LTP is informed by the previous 3-year LTP. This LTP will inform 3 years going forward in 3 years' time. So it's not as though we have a stop-start process to that. These are ongoing processes. And in the same way that, as Stuart outlined, our capital program needs to be indicative enough and reasonable enough for us to have a basis for planning forward, but as we come into the near term, that's obviously when we have to review those specifically to ensure that we actually have appropriate budget to complete the works we need to complete.
Through you, Mr. Chair, years 4 to 10 do include some of the projects that are, I suppose, more loved by the community in terms of community facilities and development of community assets. They're much more visible, but unfortunately our constraints don't allow us to get to projects like extending the event centre until we get into that subsequent period. So hopefully they will be the first cabs off the rank in the next LTP.
Thank you. And just one more question. Again, this is just one really to, I think, make it really clear to the public. So the consultation document obviously has some key topics, but could you just confirm that anybody can submit on anything related to the supporting documents?
That's correct.
Of which there's many.
Correct.
If anything's listed in the consultation document, this can be submitted on, even if it's not a key topic.
Anything in the supporting document at all can be the subject of submission.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'll be made clear on the website.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Because I didn't know if it was...
I think just to be clear though, there are a number of elements in the document where, whilst it's able to be submitted on, there are a lot of disclosure issues in the document, disclosure measures. Some of those actually, if they are submitted on, would actually form future processes rather than being resolved through the LTP itself. So to the extent that we have a funding and financing policy, we have a DC policy, some of those are unlikely to be resolved by a submission to an LTP, but they may be resolved by further work that Council chooses to do as a result of those submissions.
Sure, thank you.
Further questions? I'll move the first 4, the LTP CD. Do I have... Thank you, Cody. Open up to discussion. Lisa?
Sorry, I was keeping them not discussed.
Well, I won't choose that as good.
But you wondered about it though.
Yeah.
Go, Quentin.
Yeah, thank you. Look, just wanted to make a few comments. So, as I said before, I want to acknowledge that this has been a really difficult process. This is actually my 3rd LTP. The first one I wasn't involved in all the preparation of, but was involved in this phase of it. The second one was sat in the middle of COVID, so it was another interesting curveball, but ironically I don't think it was as difficult, remotely as difficult as this, because we still had choices and we just had uncertainty. I suppose we're now certain that the challenges are there, and at least in the short term, and that's created some really tough decisions for us, and that we won't be meeting the expectations of our communities in many fields of what we do for a long period of time, which is really, really tough. We are still investing significantly, particularly in the infrastructure space and Three Waters and stuff like that. The numbers are horrifyingly big in some cases, and for the sake of the investment in water treatment and storage in Wanaka is significant. The investment in the Hawea pipeline, the Wanaka conveyancing scheme, the future upgrades of Project Pure are all, together, are multi-hundred millions of dollars collectively. So, we are investing in things that we have to, and we've got some really tough calls. One of the difficulties, I think, is we've explained the challenge well in this document and the reasons why we've had to do those things. What we haven't done, in my view, particularly well is create a vision for our community about, where we're headed and what we're doing in the future. And I think that's the challenge still for this council and the next council, is to look beyond those challenges and keep the eye on the prize, or the North Star, so to speak, as to where we're heading, and really have that vision to do more rather than just deal with the problems that are in front of our nose. So I think that's a challenge for us. As I signalled, I think we need to continue to look to things like development contributions and visitor levies and other revenue streams, including how we do fees and charges for our community, how we who pays for what in terms of what they use, but particularly development contributions. That the cost of growth in our community continues to be a dominant. The cost of what we have to do to provide for growth is a dominant thing in all our plans, and I think we need to continue to work out how we pay for that and how we fund that. I think what we are doing is a reasonable response to the challenge that we're in at this point in time. But as I said, I think we need to look beyond that and continue to work out what to do next. So that's just my comments.
Sorry, just keep on going.
Through the chair, if I may, just like to make a comment. A big thanks, as always, to the staff, who are always the unsung heroes when it comes to LTP time, and big thanks to you, Stu, and your team. Thanks to the councillors who put their shoulder to the wheel. I suspect there'll be little thanks around this document for us, and it could quite possibly go down like a warm fish milkshake with some of our residents. But we do need the community's feedback. And if we take a look across the country, and that's been touched on here this afternoon, Hamilton 19.9, Napier 27.3, Dunedin 17.5, our neighbours QLDC 18.3. When you look at all that we've been dealing with, and that's been well documented today as well and over a period of time, and some of the decisions that we've made, let's not forget that. We could have delivered an increase of 4 or 5 percentage points lower, but the reality shows that we haven't. My parting comments are, the cry used to ring out 10, 15, 20 years ago, that we don't want the Lakes District to be only for those with money or the wealthy. And in my opinion only, this document potentially shows we are edging a long way down that track, but I'm keen to see what we get back from consultation. Thank you.
I also want to echo a little bit what Ferg said in terms of thanks to staff. I started a year ago right at the beginning when this was kind of brought to us, but thank you to all the staff that have walked me through it, Stuart especially. Your guidance will be missed. I've learnt a lot from you, so thank you. I think no one wants rates rises. It's something that is just coming to us like it is coming to many people, but I want to reassure that, I guess, anybody listening, that it's not something that councillors want, it's not something that council staff wanted, it's just the situation that we are in. So I also echo everyone to get involved, to learn as much as possible about this document, how they can have their say, because the more feedback that we get, the more meaningful work we can do. So I encourage people to get involved.
Right, thanks, Mr. Chair. Through the Chair, this is actually my fourth LTP, believe it or not. There's been challenging times in the past. We've had, and I guess it's pretty challenging at the moment. And I think looking, like Quentin said, look to the future. One way to look to the future is to look back and see where we've come from the last 20 years. I've been in the area for 26 years, and so yeah, there's been significant changes. A lot more services, and a lot of good stuff has happened, and I think it will continue to happen in the future. The biggest issue, I think, is we've got to work as close as we can with the government, central government, on the amount of compliance they're going to send down the line, and also alternative funding schemes. And we talk about visitor taxes. I still think we should be pushing the GST share a bit more, and we've got to look at toll, get the users pay for toll roads and things like that. One of the things we would like to point out, we keep talking about it, the three waters. Now, if we didn't have three waters, yeah, our rates wouldn't be quite so high, but we'd be still paying for the ratepayers would still be paying for three waters. So, at the end of the day, whether it's a 15% increase or a 5% increase, you'll be still paying for the three waters with another bill that would come down the line to you, because someone has to pay for it. So that's why it's so important that we do push strongly for some alternative funding sources and look to the future. So I think we'll do well.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick mention of the infrastructure strategy, the 30-year infrastructure strategy, and the fact that it's also included social infrastructure. It's, in my mind, a brilliant piece of work, and it also links everything together very nicely. It's part of the LTP, but I also, in discussion with staff today, looked at the fact that it can be a separate document available to people as well. It's also a live document. So as things change, whether central government, shifts and repeals, etc., that's something that we can use as a foundational document for all of our strategies and how they tie in together. So, great piece of work, Steph. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I, like others, want to encourage the community to do a bit of a deep dive into this if they have the time. There's some really important policies in there, including the significance and engagement policy, which, if you're concerned about how QLDC engages with the community, that drives a lot of that. So you can make changes through submissions to that policy. One of the others is the CCO disclosure, which sets out the nature and scope of activities of Queenstown Airport Corporation and the policies and objectives that we set for them or don't set for them. It's not just what's there but what's not there. Those things you can submit on, and they do have, and that is, with the CCO, that is the place to submit. We go through an SOI and SOE process, but we need to align that with what's in our long-term plan, because that is where the community gets a say on the direction of the airport. So I just want to make that really clear, because that's new. We haven't done that in the past, but it's how we should be doing it. I want to agree with Quentin around the collection of DCs. I've looked back over past LTPs and the lines, where we were collecting development contributions and the amount of capital spend that was attributable to growth. They never match up at all. The gap's huge. And so I think we need to look into that, and I'd encourage people to have a look at the development contributions policy and any changes that could be made there. I would like to see some actuals come out of staff, so we're looking at what's budgeted in the long-term plans, but if we could see actuals coming back at some point, that would be helpful. Just a comment on the process, and I asked a question earlier, sorry it was an awkward question, Stu, just around how we landed on level of service will remain the same. We took a baseline approach, and that baseline included level of service in the baseline, which is around operational expenditure, a lot of it. Look, through this process, sorry, I should go back a step. That wasn't agreed. We didn't sit down around a table and look at the pros and cons of the different options and make a decision in public. It was agreed or not agreed by various councillors sitting around the table in a closed steering group meeting, and I think that's fundamental, and I'll come back to that with some solutions. But because that was agreed early on, we spent a long time looking at the CAPEX, and I'm actually quite comfortable with most of the CAPEX program because we did go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I'm happy with the investment, I'm happy with the infrastructure strategy, but we just didn't look at level of service of some of the programs that run off the back of some of the policies that we've put in place, so we don't understand what they cost. And the consultation document and the long-term plan itself doesn't attach any dollar figures to those operational programs that have a large wage component to them, and so it makes it really difficult to shrink your rates if you don't have input into some of those, if you don't understand the cost of some of those programs that have come off the back of our policies. We don't get to reduce wages, we don't get to reduce certain grants. We needed to have a look at that, and we didn't. We were really diligent with CapEx, we weren't diligent with OpEx. And I think that's telling, and that's why we have such high rates increases for so many years, or at least part of the reason. My concern is that this isn't affordable. Where we've landed, we'll be doubling rates in the next 6 years, and what we know is that what we budget for is never enough. It always goes over. As I said, 7.5% negative variance from this year. We're not living within our budgets, let alone our means. And we are now seeing pretty drastic collection measures on rates that are having a major impact on some of the more vulnerable people in our communities. So look, what's done is done. It's going out for consultation, and I really encourage everybody to have a say on it. I just thought for next time, the process, I think, needs to include some gateway decisions. So if we are going to decide that we're going to maintain level of service, that needs to be done in public. If we're deciding on the basis for our infrastructure strategy and the key issues, some of those things should be done in public, so there's staged accountability through what is essentially a year-long process. Otherwise, everything's just getting done by a sense of what staff believe the councillors think. We actually have to make decisions and then base the rest of the process on those decisions for which we are accountable. So that's my suggestion for next time is let's look at the process for developing the LTP, because I think it could do with some improvement. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I appreciate that nobody welcomes rates rises. And I have to say, when I was on the outside, before I got on council looking in, the answers all look pretty simple. But sitting around this table, looking out, it's a totally different story. And if we fail to make a brave decision, we're only setting up our communities for failure and even greater costs in the future. I think we have to make a brave decision and ensure that our communities are well set up for the future.
We'll go Gavin first.
Thanks. I guess, like I said before, it's been a long process and we've put a lot of work into it. Echoing what Councillor Ferguson said about other districts nearby, their rates increases are percentage-wise in a lot of cases higher than what we're looking at here. Also note that at an earlier stage in our steering group process, we had a higher percentage we were looking at, and it's taken a lot of work to get it down to where it is now. Also, it's high initially, but there is some light further down the tunnel, at least, that those percentages will reduce slightly, which I'm encouraged by at least. It'll be interesting once this goes out for consultation to see what feedback we get. Just a couple of things that sort of stand out to me. The Aotearoa route topic for discussion, which I think Councillor Wong has mentioned. There's certainly a very serious question to answer there about the rate component of that. In my mind, it's difficult to justify it being targeted at the CBD for the Aotearoa route. We'll see what comes back for that. And then also, there's money in the long-term plan for stages 2 and 3 of the Aotearoa route. It's stated clearly that there's none to build those, but there is some for ongoing design and land acquisition. So, I've clearly stated what my preference is in terms of the route perhaps being amended, if possible, over those 10 years to avoid demolishing the memorial centre. Because I think a lot of people are still not aware that that's the potential of the current route. The other question, or the other point that stands out to me is the topic on the facilities at 516 Ladies Mile. Definitely be interested to see what comes back on that in terms of feedback. There's certainly, from my understanding and the comments that I get, there's a strong desire for facilities to be on that site sooner rather than later. I don't know, it's not clearly stated for anyone who's a casual observer, but there's a $45 million amount, or roughly, for the extension of the event centre, which was briefly mentioned before. It would be interesting to see whether anyone picks up that perhaps some of that could be redirected to Ladies Mile. And I think I've mentioned before that the intention is to build more courts at the event centre, but some of those would be encroaching on a car park, which then means that there's got to be a new car park, which is built in the sports field, which then needs a new sports field. That seems to be underutilising some of that money when we could be front-loading it at Ladies Mile, in my mind, to get some facilities on that site for the people that live in that area. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what, hopefully we get a good engagement through this process and get some good feedback, and we can make some informed decisions when it comes to implementing the long-term plan. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. Get my turn to go down memory lane and be slightly nostalgic. It was really good reading in terms of how it's framed and structured, because it feels very validating to put all of this work into one narrative. I think our council's had a fair share of adversity in the term that we've had through lawsuits, unforeseen budget increases, high inflation, recession, change of government, which has changed in border reform, policies changed. I think the best policy is honesty, and I think we've really stuck true to that, and put a lot of work into, hey, this is what it is, and we're sort of having to sit here and make the uncomfortable decisions, but do what we can in order to best look after existing residents and future residents, I think, as well. And I think I'm really grateful. I still don't know how we've only got 15%, to be honest, out of everything that we've had to endure, and looking out from here. And although it's not the environment that I'm sure Stu would have wanted to leave in, I think you've done a really important duty of care to get us to where we are. I'm extremely grateful for your efforts. So, yeah, that's all I really want to say.
Thank you. Before I go to the vote, thank you, councillors. It's been a fair effort to get to where we are. Look, it's only for consultation. I think there's further debate to be had over it once we get to deliberations. Just for me, like my main focus, when I see 1.5 billion of that 2.4 billion capital works program in 3 waters, if I just think back 6 to 7 months ago of where we were in the middle of a cryptosporidium outbreak, I never ever want to go through that again, and that is the focus of why 3 waters is where it's at, and it's, as Lisa said, 60% of what we're going to do over the next 10 years, and that is future-proofing the health and safety of this community. So look, it's for consultation. As everyone has said around the table, get involved, come to any community event. I encourage all the councillors to get out there and talk with your community about this, because 15.6% proposed rate rise. There's a lot to discuss. So, with that, I'll put it to the vote.
I just have a minor procedural question.
Yeah.
Should point 2 be supporting documents rather than document?
Yeah, it's written like that all the way through.
I don't know why the actual LTP is called a supporting document. It's strange.
Okay, I mean, it's a minor.
I don't think it's important.
Okay,
It's not material. Right. All those in favour? Aye. All those against?
Do you record that for me, Jonathan?
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks
very much.
Thank you, Stu.
Thanks, Stu.
Item 3, page 61. Oh.
Noises. Sorry, just bird noises. Are they real birds, or are they coming from speakers?
It's our bird song. It's our bird song.
They're real,
Deafening dawn chorus.
Yeah, last
Good afternoon.
celebrate the win.
Okay. Item 3, approval of user fees and charges. Page 61 of your papers. So, who's joining us, Stu? Tony is. He's politics. Okay, Tony, or Stu, take it away.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just really here to answer any questions. I mean, the fees and charges went through a full hearings process, the reports before you, so it was from the recommendation of the panel team Councillor Guy was the chair of the panel.
I'm just reminding councillors that the LTP actually assumes that these charges are upheld.
That pass. Okay. All good? Just before I open up to questions, was there anything further you wanted to add as chair?
I just, saying, as Tony, take the report as read. We staff were very diligent in answering the panel's questions. We've added in, under the approval there, paragraph 4A, around also accepting the biennial safety inspections. There was a lot of discussion and review of earlier council meetings to satisfy the panel that that was an appropriate level of service, and the advice we received was that to also approve that in line with approving the fees and charges. That was based on the fact that no inspection obviously does not provide a safe mooring, and an annual inspection would incur more cost to the end user. So that's why the panel suggested adding that into the recommendation. But if there's any other questions for staff, I'll hand it over to councillors.
Councillors?
Just a request, can we take 4 separate to the others?
Yeah.
Just one question which I have asked multiple times, but just to the panel, what consideration was made, this is to do with environmental health fees, what consideration was made to the small low-risk businesses that some people submitted on? What might staff, I'm not sure.
Sorry, was that to me, madam?
Yeah, hearings panel or staff.
I think it's more probably the hearings panel. They have the body considering that. So it's just...
Yeah, sure. Can you just repeat your question?
Yeah, what consideration was made to the submissions that were made by small businesses, low risk, with regards to environmental health?
Yeah, thank you. All submissions were read and given due consideration, and I think a lot of the discussion from the perspective of the panel there was around understanding the apportionment of time and cost considerations, and also investigating what happened at the other end of the scale, whether small versus large operators, to make sure that there was what we considered to be fair consideration across the different sector users. But the main tenet that I remember was the need to deliver safe food outcomes for our community, and that often that may not be determined just by the size of the operator. And the example that was used there was that some foodborne illness is not necessarily just transferred by the food portion that you're talking about. It could be spread by human contact or other means. So there was quite a lot of discussion around the different timings and what level of service had to be provided. But if there's any other of the panel that would like to comment on.
I think you're fine there as the chair. Yeah, I think that's well answered.
Thank you.
Hang on. Any further questions?
I just said thank you.
Okay, brilliant.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I appreciate some of these fees and charges are historically they have been quite low because there hasn't been regular reviews. Is there now a regular process in place to review these fees and charges on a regular basis rather than having to have substantive cost increases?
On an annual basis, our main fees and charges being the planning and development charges and the building consent and the resource consent area are reviewed more regularly. There are some fees and charges that have not been reviewed for some time. I think we need to look at a system that actually does a more regular update than leave them for a lengthy period. We do look to our compliance with the revenue and financing policy, and if there's not an obvious variance, the fees and charges are often just left. But I think to your point, a more regular process would be beneficial to everybody.
I think it's probably also reflective of the inflation environment we've been in for some considerable time. There's been a lot of shift in cost, but we're now in a different situation. So, as you'll recall, we did discuss that during some of the workshops on this topic. So we'll certainly look towards a more regular increase of those. Thanks.
Thank you. If I may comment through to you on that, I think what we did see in the submissions was that those fees that were reviewed more recently were very readily accepted by our community. So there weren't submissions against or for them.
Question, Tom? Just as a member of the panel, I'm just surprised that we haven't got a report, and we didn't write one. I wrote a position, but even that wouldn't have covered how we addressed the submission points. So, we've got one question down the way about environmental health. I would have expected the report to cover the questions asked and how we'd addressed those and where we'd landed. So, and that may be for us as a panel to learn that, but I'm just wondering why it was so brief, that what's come out of that.
In the full council documentation that was provided to us, I was satisfied with the level of minutes taken from the deliberations as being an accurate summary of what had been discussed through the hearings process. So I felt that was that's in our council documents that were uploaded to OneDrive.
Well, good.
That's not public though?
Yeah, the minutes.
The minutes, just what's in the minutes, which is very brief and doesn't address submission points. Did the chair, just a question to the chair, was that circulated to you early?
That was in our full council
So nothing. So the report wasn't circulated to the chair or committee ahead of time, just so everybody knows. We've not signed off on this.
It was circulated ahead of time because we got the full council package before the end of last week.
No,
so
the panel hasn't signed off on it as a
yes,
panel
I have
report.
signed off on it. It's the chief.
Okay. Any further questions? Do I have a mover? Thank you, Barry. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Thank you, Gavin. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I do have something to say. So I was, as we went through the process, I was uncomfortable with two aspects of it. One was the parking fees because there was no sound basis for just hiking them. It was something that I thought we could leave alone, so that was why I voted against that as recorded. The other was around the moorings. And I do see that there's a major flaw in this process. Staff had said that we had agreed to a biennial inspection at the last meeting, and that was then translated into the wording of the statement of proposal. So that went out, was notified for submissions, and it said that we had already made the decision on that biennial inspection. And then we got to the hearing, and there was some acknowledgement that maybe we hadn't considered the navigational safety bylaw and the requirements in that around administrative activities and fees and charges. And so through the hearing process it was recommended that we go back and decide that again. And there was some question around, well, should we not be meeting the consultation requirements? And the reply that I got was that we had done that through the SOP. So we didn't do that through the SOP. Because we had said we had already made the decision, there was no request for feedback on a biennial inspection, and there was no information provided on that because it was assumed we'd already decided it. So now I'm sitting here looking at the Local Government Act. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. So the relevant sections of the Local Government Act seem to be Section 150, which is fees may be prescribed by bylaw, and then Sections 82, 78 and 79 around consultation. So this is a significant issue, right, these moorings. This is going to cost individuals a lot of money. And when you look at the significance and engagement policy, it looks like it requires consultation. When you look at the Local Government Act sections, it looks like it requires consultation. When you look at the bylaw, it looks like it requires consultation. But we haven't consulted. And what's been put to us today is to agree the biennial inspection without actually having provided the options assessments and the information that people who are affected by a proposal like this should be expected to have in front of them. We should be hearing from them having had that information. And that's not the case here. So we've been asked to agree again what we were told we already agreed. The process is funky, to put it nicely, and I do think we need to go back to the drawing board on this. We don't actually need to implement the biennial inspection yet. It's not something we can stick with the status quo, and we can go back and then consult on it if we want to, get that feedback and make a decision having had the information that we're supposed to have. So that's all I want to say on that one, and that's the reason why I won't be agreeing.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
No, should be no surprises there, but I can't support an across-the-board increase in environmental health fees. I don't believe it's fair or equitable, and as a result won't be supporting this.
Okay. I'll
go then
sorry?
I'll speak as a secondary if you like.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So having sat on the panel and listened to all the submissions and through the deliberations, Nikki did raise some valid questions, but we discussed them at length. We had answers which I gave consideration to personally, and at the end of it all I was satisfied with the answers we got. I know you don't necessarily agree with them, but I had a pretty open mind about it, and at the end of it all I was satisfied with the answers that we did get. I mean, there was some debate about whether or not a decision to implement the biennial inspection was carried out, or whether it was just a decision to consult on it. But that's the reason why there is now in this resolution a confirmation of a decision. So today's resolution potentially confirmed that decision. The Act talks about a publicly notified decision, so once that decision is made, if it is made today, then it will be publicly notified. It also talks about consultation, but that really relates to the fees, and that's what we had in terms of the fees and charges consultation, in my mind anyway. So that's where I've got to with being satisfied with the answers that we've had and the process that we've gone through.
Thank you, Gavin. Good work. Debate. Wow. Eric? You're good? Yep. Okay. I'll put it to the vote. We'll do 1, 2, 3 and 5. You happy with that, Brendan? So, all those in favour? Aye. All those against? Just GML. Okay. Thank you. And item 4, A and B. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? 1, 2, 3. Motion carried on both counts. Thank you, Tony. Item 4. 5 now, is it?
The next item.
The next item, yeah. Page 141. Timoko Toi, Timoko Takata, the Creativity, Culture and Heritage Strategy for QLDC. Well, QLD. Page 141. Caught up with us? Oh yes, we have. Yeah, we've got 3. Yeah. Gosh. Who's leading this one? Marie, Giselle, welcome.
Thank you.
Away we go.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having us here today. We are here to present the final version of Te Muka Toi, Te Muka Tākata, the Creativity, Culture and Heritage Strategy for the Queenstown Lakes District. I'm here with Giselle Regan, who's the Chair of Green Lakes Cultural Trust and also the Chair of the steering group that worked on this document. I will take the report as read, but I just also wanted to thank Giselle for all her hard work chairing the steering group, and I think we're really excited to get to this point. Thank you very much. Giselle, do you want to have it?
Yeah, sure. I've just got a couple of words to say. So it seems fitting that we're presenting to you today on the eve of such a significant cultural day in the calendar, with the national broadcast of Matariki Hautapu taking place in Manukau tomorrow. Creativity, culture and heritage is in this district's DNA, and this strategy reflects the many histories, traditions and unique stories that weave together to create who we are as a community. It acknowledges the work of many who have paved the way, listens to the voices of our newest community members, with 155 organisations and many more individuals taking part in the process. Te Muka Toi, Te Muka Takata provides a collective vision for the future and a clear plan for how we will get there together. With your endorsement, we're excited and ready to get this underway.
Brilliant. Questions, councillors? Sorry, Ken, before I open up. It's all good. Questions? Do we have a mover? Oh, geez. Hands up then.
Secondly.
Go Lowell, and then I'll go Ferg, and then...
Just a question.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, okay. No, just getting process sorted.
Several of these questions. A lot of reference to the groups that are involved. I'm surprised there's some groups not mentioned there, like the Upper Clutha Regular Society. You're talking about Lakes District Museum, and this is the heritage document. We haven't got any mention of the Upper Clutha Regular Society.
They should be recognised in the upfront in the groups that were part of it, because we had two sessions with them. So they came along to us.
Well, there's a lot of reference to Lakes District Museum doing stuff, especially when you start talking oral history and that. Both groups are doing it, so I want to make sure that they're not just...
You know, we've met with Ken and what was the other chap's name? Yeah. John. So we met with them at Arrowtown and then over in Wanaka as well. And in my other role at LWT, we're working really closely with the Upper Clutha.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question was, RTO has been involved. Now, it's not a core role for the RTOs, is it? Their main role was promoting the district. So how involved are they going to get in this?
This is Project 6 out of the DMP, so support our arts, culture and heritage better. So it falls out of the DMP. So it's an actual action out of our destination management.
Okay, right. Thank you. I thought that'd be a good reason.
All good?
Yeah, thank you. Just for you, Chair, Councillor, one of the aspects that the team have worked on is linking that heritage element strongly back into the strategy, even through title, but also working with the groups as you've outlined. Right in the early days, it was acknowledged there was quite a bit happening in the space that wasn't often daylighted. So I think it's just worth noting through the work that the steering group have pulled together a lot of energy to ensure that the parties you've outlined and many others have actually got some voice through this document and how we look to take that part forward. Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you. So just in option 1, it refers to disadvantages of cost and resources. Do you imagine there's going to be much there in terms of costs of resources and time for QLD staff?
In the first couple of years, we're confident that we can deliver what we've put in the first couple of years of the plan, but we've acknowledged in the plan that there are significant elements of it that will require us looking into how we seek investment or find investment for some of those initiatives.
Conscious you're very stretched department already.
We have, we've got a strong commitment to it in working alongside Free Lakes Cultural Trust, the Museum and the other groups that work in the sector. It isn't just about council delivering this piece of work, it is a collaboration and it needs to be such to be able to achieve those outcomes. And this document really gives us the ability to unlock some of that investment which we haven't really been able to do without a joined up approach.
And that's the reason why the regional arts office here is very important and why when we get to funds later on in the paper, that's why it's there. Yeah. Okay. Further questions?
Yeah, thank you. Probably similar to Lyle's question is, I suppose, ensuring that the role of the Lakes District Museum is one that is district-wide in telling the stories across the district, and that we need to continue to have that in mind. And secondly, that, and I apologise, I can't find the reference now, but there was an unusual reference in my view to differently abled people in that document when it's talking about minority groups and stuff, and I find that terminology unusual and inconsistent with I suppose how the New Zealand Disability Strategy or and I just a signal that I would prefer that terminology refer to people with disabilities as the correct term.
My
probably.
apologies, I didn't pick that up.
And I apologise, I can't put my finger on it right now, but I did come across it, and
Would have been in the inclusivity section.
yeah, in the inclusive, and yeah, so will you look to change that reference?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Through you, Chair, we'll tidy that up.
Sweet.
Yeah, and there are a couple of minor changes prior to so the document that we sent through to governance. There are a couple of little minor wording changes we've got to make as well at the same time.
And just further through yourself, Chair, just to reiterate, Councillor, your point's well made about that link, the heritage element, and with David and now with Jane at the museum, the steering group, we've actually put a lot of effort with Jan in the back and others, Olivia, to make sure with Sam that we're well connected to take this forward. I think it's one of the strengths of this document and being able to see it, the collaboration around what resource and how we actually use it.
And it goes beyond sector too, so it's not just heritage talking to heritage, it's heritage talking to tech, it's heritage talking to creativity, it's in the RTO, so it's like all working together, not a silo.
Thank you.
Just a question on that, through the chair. What's happening to the old heritage document, which has lots of detailed stuff in it, like good stuff, but that is sort of being superseded in a way, but are we retaining that?
So as you'll see, one of the recommendations here will be revoking that strategy. So we put a lot of work into reviewing the old strategy and pulling across what was still required in the strategy. So there are a lot of things that we hadn't done from the Heritage Strategy 2010, so we want to make sure that is continued, and we're confident. We've also tested this with all the heritage groups, so we've had a hui with them to make sure they were comfortable with the new recommendations that were made. I acknowledge that it's a really important foundational document, so I have asked that comms, we'll have a discussion with the comms team about how we reflect that still on the website so it doesn't disappear from the history, if you like, so we keep the heritage of the heritage strategy. Yeah, so absolutely, it's still really important that we see that it's a foundational piece.
It's just lots of information, it's a very different type of document, and you wouldn't want to lose it. So that sounds...
Yeah, definitely flag that up to them.
Sorry, I didn't pick that up.
No, that's okay.
Through you, Chair, Councillor, we've also, stuff like targeting, working with the DOC equivalent. There's been many touch points in that space, including the community that, the trust that we've been working with, up a Cluster as well, to make sure that those elements are reflected in this.
Do you think there'd be a way to just, if you end up putting it on the website and there's a link, do you think there's a way this document could link to the past revoked heritage strategy as a way of making sure that it lives, even though it's dead?
Well, we need to talk with comms about how best to do that. Not the best of business, but it'll be on the same page.
It could get lost in our website.
I think technically revoking is actually, we would have to be careful, wouldn't we, with that? If we're using that terminology and you want to keep it, you might want to change it. You might want to change that
want to keep it in
the key thing is to revoke it, because this is the new document, but I think the key, and having looked at it, there's a wealth of history, but it's not really a modern fit-for-purpose strategy. But I think keeping the material alive as a record, but also as an important artefact in the heritage journey, I think is the key thing that's been raised, and I think that's a good idea.
Yes.
Thanks.
All good. Now, people fighting over who to move this. I will refer to the chair and then I will refer to the deputy chair as community as the second. So there we go. We've got to move on to second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah, through the chair, just congratulate you on a lot of work done on this. I do raise this on. We've had quite a few big strategies come to us, destination management plans and things like that. Just reading this one, I'm just always wary of the number of actions you put in there and the ability to achieve them, the expectations you raise with the people who think we're going to achieve them, and our financial constraints. So I just mention it that when you're setting priorities for doing the actions, because there seems to be a lot of them there, I'm wary of the number, and I encourage you to work hard on the priorities and how to keep those actions alive so we all keep energised.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, can I just comment on that quickly, that we have had a number of iterations of this document with that very lens across it, and making sure And it would be fair to say the chair of the steering committee has led some very robust discussions about making sure it's aspirational but also deliverable. And I think it's a very valid comment that you raised, Councillor.
Thank you.
Cody, then Carol's.
Yeah, also well done. It's great stuff. I think I get so excited that I want to jump like 10 years. And, yeah, exactly. And I think, the real talk about success measures. Success measures are going to be felt more so than documented. And I know this is multifaceted, and I've had an enormous amount of hope from a whole bunch of people who are along the same lines. So I'm really encouraged to see this captured. And I know that everyone's just bursting to get this stuff done. So I'm really excited to see how this will help shape things. And I don't feel too prescriptive on holding you to account to ensure that, a small element will be done in the way that you think it is, because by nature it's going to evolve into how people are going to see best fit anyway. So best of luck on the endeavour, and thank you so much for your work so far.
Thanks.
Lisa?
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. Yes, I wanted to say what an exciting piece of work it is, and thank you so much. 77.5% of our community believe that thriving arts, culture, heritage is incredibly important to our communities to be thriving, and I think that the figures we saw in there around the successes already, 410,000 through the doors of Te Atamira in the last 24 months, 69.5 million into the economy already with our homegrown world-class festivals. The bit that really excites me is I believe that this district has got huge potential for making New Zealand look good, and I really like the piece where it says, could we become known as a place of cultural and intellectual adrenaline? To pick up on what Councillor Cox said about how does this tie in with how does our AO tie in with our RTOs? I think looking at being known globally as a thriving creative cultural destination, a place that looks and feels more like us, with a networked approach to a diverse range of world-class, multi-purpose indoor and outdoor spaces. I'm like Cody, I want to be 10 years ahead and see those amazing performing arts centres here in Queenstown, over the hill in Wanaka, maybe even regionally linking in with our cousins across in QLDC, that this whole district is globally on the map as a real hub of creative, cultural stimulus and economic driver for our communities coming together. So I was so excited to read this strategy when it came to us in the papers and see all the work that you've done. So congratulations to everybody involved, and let's be daring, let's get on with it. Best artistic, creative, entrepreneurial, wise, heritage, little global emerging metro on the planet. So let's do it. Thank you, guys.
Just a quick comment off the back of that. Look, for me, it wasn't about the tourists. I think one of the drafts had quite a lot of stuff in there around doing this for someone else. And I like where it's landed. It feels like that's been pulled back out of it, and that it's actually we're doing this for us, for our people, for our children, for our creatives. And people will come to see that. Do it well for the locals, and what do they say? Then the tourists will love it. Different. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for making it something that's about us, not about money and bringing people here and economics. It's truly about and I think that's why I love it so much. So thank you, appreciate it.
Open up to history.
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank
well, I'll say a little piece, and just well done. Tori Whānau, coming to get you. I think Wellington's going to get knocked off as number one, because number two is coming after you. Look, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? None. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Okay, item 5, Community Fund 24-27 allocation recommendations, page 66 of your council papers. Ran away, came too early. Go to you, Marie.
Yes. Kia ora koutou again, thank you very much. So here to present the QLDC Community Fund 24 to 2027 allocation recommendations. I will take the paper as read. We went through a good process with both officers and elected members to come up with these recommendations. So just open to any questions before
questions.
Decisions.
This is really just to highlight it to any community groups or members watching. As you mentioned, we did go through a good process. We've talked a little bit about changing process, and whilst we don't have that outlined completely yet, could you just give us an idea of how we might change it in the future so that the process is clear to our community?
Sure. Well, the first thing we've done this time around is, and it was only a couple of months before the round started, where we've taken on a new funding platform. So that's an online platform that allows us to better run a process from end to end. That's from application through to reporting. So we're still in the early stages of working on how that tool will be of benefit to us, but it's used across Australia and New Zealand by a lot of councils, so we feel like there's quite a bit of progress to be made there. Giovanni's doing some great work already, testing elements of that, and I know we've also worked on a couple of other funds, the events fund you've got coming up and the waste minimisation fund, to start to tease out some of that. The other element will be working on a policy that sits alongside this. We don't yet have a clear enough policy about how we want to allocate the funds. Also, the new wellbeing framework that's presented as part of the current draft LTP is something that will work alongside to really see how that aligns and supports these kinds of recommendations in the future.
Thank you. And just one more just to close that off really. The need for policy, so that again people can understand it. So we've got 94 applicants requesting 3.6 million. So I think what we know is that government's kind of retreating from the caring economy, and councils and philanthropy are left to deal with that. So I think it's important for our community to know that we are doing our best in partnership, but you know, that's not really a question. I just realised I'll try and get over. But do you think it will be easier in the future, given the platform and the processes that we're putting in place?
I think the process itself will have more clarity. Part of the work that Giovanni and I will be doing is looking at that capability building we need to do with community organisations. That is something that often comes up, as often groups aren't really sure how to navigate the funding world, so that's definitely an area we want to do more work on. It's never a perfect thing, and as you've recognised, the government's change in direction at the moment brings extra pressure on councils to fill the gap, so that will evolve and shift over time.
Can I just say through you here, weaving your point there, Councillor, what we're also seeing, and we've just seen it with the previous paper, often council, or we are as officers or staff, are held to account through a partnership, certainly with the money. And what we are working very hard as a team, and also the conversations with the true partnership, as we've just seen with the arts sector, is making sure we're very clear about the constraints. But as a collaboration, how do you leverage the best of that? And we need to see more of that in the spaces that we're starting to play in with the change in the economic series.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Through the Chair, picking up on Councillor Whitehead's point that we had 94 applicants for 3.5 mil, there's going to be a lot of dissatisfied or disappointed applicants out there. How did we close off? Because every single proposal we saw justified us giving everyone the whole amount that they were asking for, and we had to be obviously work with the budgets that we had. How do we close that out with the unsuccessful applicants? Do we go back and explain and look to foster any other channels? The ones that we are working with, is there still an ongoing relationship management piece with people that weren't successful.
Definitely. And Giovanni's got a few good ideas.
Most certainly, yes. So the goal behind the work that we're doing, even though we are significantly financially constrained to be able to fund all of these great initiatives, we would like to be able to continue partnering with these groups to upskill them, provide them with resources. Naturally, we have libraries and databases for other funding sources. And we've also hired myself to foster some of the relationships with other funders and ways to actually strengthen these partnerships and collaborate more in creative ways that will help these groups when we might be too financially constrained to do so.
Yeah, so everyone will get a response letter after the decision is made, and they can come and connect with Giovanni and talk more about their application if they want to. But we'll look for those opportunities to reach out to groups that may need that little bit of extra training or capability building if they're interested.
And giving all those groups the macro perspective that everybody had to feel a little bit of pain to. Yeah.
Roll on. Vicky?
Thanks. Just a quick question around the community associations, because I don't know why I didn't pick this up before, but some of them have got their $5,000 per year. Others have just got one-offs. They all do?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a move? Oh, sorry, you're going to move?
No, I was going to move it.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify procedurally? You sort of suggested I'd step aside before. That hasn't been our practice in the past because they're charitable trusts and that we don't benefit from them personally, other than the community benefit. I just wanted to clarify that guidance.
We don't want to agree to one by one every time so that somebody...
No, but it's just a procedural question.
So my advice was that you've got to make that choice yourself, but you are potentially somebody who is voting to influence the allocation of council funds.
I'll have the engine start.
So we're going to move it. Yes. Matt, you have a seconder? Second. Any discussion?
Just got one thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
Sorry, firstly, apologies. I wasn't able to attend the final deliberation earlier this month. I attended online, but it's quite difficult to take part effectively online. So the only thing I wanted to raise was that the allocation to the Wakatipu Wild and Conifer Control Group is reduced from what has been a relatively long-standing amount, and I think it's a pity that it has to be reduced. I mean, obviously the funds are limited. It's a pity not to be able to continue the full 500,000 funding that they've had, over the next 3 years, especially given the work that they've done, and we've seen the benefit of that work over the back of Mount Dewar and Coronet Peak, and also, what we understand to be the cost or the benefit to cost ratio of that work. I don't think there's any better investment really in terms of benefit to cost ratio, which we've been told is upwards of 30 to 1 to maybe even up to 90 in the 90s in this district, which is a great return. I guess I don't want to see the hard work that's been done on that front going backwards, just by not being able to fund it to the same degree that we have been. And it's not only they're getting less this year, but it hasn't been increased for inflation over the last number of years anyway. So they're doing as much work with less money effectively. So keep up the good work.
Through you, Chair, Councillor, your point is well noted, and we're working with a long-standing partner within the community that has continued to make a significant difference in an area that we know we have the estate, but we don't have the resource to do so in-house. And actually what you're seeing is just a direct result of the volume of applications, the quality of that, and also the investment. In saying that, we've also looked at the growth of the newly established group on the Upper Clutha side that's in this space as well. And as an organisation, the investment that needs to be made in their initiatives around battling this pest. So yes, and it also comes on the back, obviously, too, of a government that's starting to look at where they see the long-term investment around this program management as well as the jobs for nature. So we're very acutely aware of that. All that said, we continue to invest significantly we've got so many alignment touch points within that partnership at a grassroots operational and strategic level that we will continue to do that and work alongside within that space. Thank you. Your point's noted.
Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those-
Sorry.
Oh, right.
No, I didn't want to just saw you hand it before.
May I have a word?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that a lot of these organisations are run by volunteers, and so just saying thank you to all the volunteers that do a lot in this community, and without them we would probably be in a much worse state. Secondly, thank you to the staff for when I requested that we actually see these organisations face to face and hear from them. That brings so much value to me in terms of this process, and I'm sure to the organisations. And generally, it's the one touch point per year when we actually do get to hear from some of these organisations and learn a bit more about them. So, thank you for accommodating that as well. So, that's all I needed to say.
All good. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? None. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Item 6, event funding, page 183 of your papers.
I'll excuse myself, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Don't have a cup of tea or beer.
Jan, are you running this ship, this one?
Should I?
Why not?
Okay.
You do a marvellous job anyway.
Thank you. It's hard to believe, but we've come around again to another annual events funding round. I am presenting this report and take it as read. Happy to answer any questions.
I'm just wondering if I can...
That door, hang on, just procedurally, just open that door, please.
Excuse me, can we make sure that door remains open?
Sorry. Yeah. You're already
Oh, just a little bit of background. I just wanted to acknowledge the work that Phoebe Arthur's put into this. We're now using the grant software that is being used by community grants as well, and she brings to council a lot of experience in that from her previous job that we've benefited from, and also the waste minimisation and climate action crew who also supported this because it's got a stronger emphasis on sustainability now, and we've really appreciated their advice. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the team and behind all this work, and obviously the panel that guided the decisions today.
Thank you. Questions, councillors?
Thank you.
His arms up a little bit higher, please, so I can actually see.
Sorry, I didn't want to always be first off the rack. Two questions. One, excuse me, these are all singular grants, like one-off. Are some of them seed funding around new events, or are they're all just straight up? Thank you. And my second question, just have we got any feedback as to what the economic benefit and returns been on investment into Luma this year? Have we got any?
We haven't received any report yet from them. They haven't uplifted their funding from this year. It usually takes them about 6 weeks or so afterwards. So more than happy to come back to full council and give you an update.
Do we have any sense of whether that's tracked up over?
Definitely numbers-wise. So this year they had over 32,500 people through over the 5 days, which was an increase from about 28,500 previously. So overall, yes, more people attending, and so more than happy to provide you that detail. Usually we get quite a detailed report from them, so happy to share that.
And one last question, are we getting any feedback around excuse me, the impact of increased compliance, and in particular I'm thinking with our waste minimisation, I know things like Matariki and that, where we now have different policies and process around our waste management and dish disrupt and things like that, as to whether that's impacting costs of events and their ability to maintain delivery of the events with different levels of compliance required from us.
Sorry, compliance?
But so through this year's funding round, we have tagged the funding to supporting events in this particular area, which includes things like Disrupt, some other programs and things where it's upskilling not only the event organisers, but we're looking at investment in areas such as the vendors, the food vendors, which we've identified through all of the events as a real struggle point for them to understand what they can serve the food on and things like that. So there's a whole piece of work there that we're working on with them. But we have specifically looked at the funding being tagged to supporting all those aspects like Disrupt and therefore encouraging event organisers to use that. We're also looking at a directory, and so rather than a whole lot of different groups going off and buying their own cups, plates and all the rest of it, is collating a bit of an asset list on who's got what, and then are they willing to share it. So again, there's no point in everybody having everything. If we can share that around and support that movement, then I think we see more support for these programs coming through.
Because we require them now, for example, to have to estimate how much waste they're going to produce and provide evidence of that at the end. That's down to how much weight and things has gone into rubbish. That's putting a lot of cost on the event organisers. Is that?
So that can be managed by the contractor, and so Kath and her team are working really closely with the majority of our contractors, such as All Waste, Wastebusters. So it's about more asking for more information and us providing some templates where those waste contractors can actually do a further step for them. There should not be a massive increased cost to that being done, but we will certainly keep that monitored over the next 12 months. We're looking at other ways of supporting the sustainability through, again, everybody not going off and buying their own signage, so us having a set of really clear signage so we get the consistency in the sustainability message as well. And then it's not an added cost to each event organiser to go off and have to get those made up.
If I may, through this, the approach has been relatively gentle around this, so over a number of years we've been introducing more and more concepts here, going much more with a carrot rather than stick space. This isn't an area that we're enforcing or requiring compliance. What I would say is to encourage groups that we fund to do these things and to demonstrate better behaviours, and that hopefully that will then go on to influence the way that they run other events that maybe we're not funding, but we don't have the levers to pull. So we're really mindful of which event we're working with when, the scale of them, where they're at on their journey in terms of sustainability. But it's not a compliance enforcement activity per se.
I suppose I'd just like us to be aware of the risk of us
Okay, yeah.
ceasing.
I think we've delved into the cost.
We've lost a couple.
Yeah, we're going off topic here. We're going off topic about the events.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Quick question. I really like the document and how you get a rating for each one and things like that, but is any consideration taken to what other sponsorship each organisation gets? And my comment around this is when I was at the final of the New Zealand Golf Open, they were kind of spouting on about how much new sponsorship they had this year and things like that, which made me think that maybe if they get so much other probably better sponsorship from other places, maybe we could tone back down ours because we might have other places.
And this year we have
decreased
what we have supported. They have previously been one of our top in the top funding group, and we've reduced it down this year. And yes, and sometimes that whole telling the story is not always, the full story. So as we work very closely with their full budgets, we look at who else funds them. There's got to be really strong sponsorship alignments as well, because we only ever look at 25% of the full budget. That's our sort of baseline to look at where we even start looking at the funding. So,
thank you.
Thank you. So we've got, firstly thank you for all of the evolution particularly around sustainability, because obviously I was quite heavily involved in that originally. It's great to see it happening. With regards to the Queenstown Marathon, we've had a 5-year MOU which ends next year. Are we looking at renewing that? Do you know?
I think we would be hesitant to be doing that. We don't do it with any other event, and I think that it's a legacy from the past.
Okay, good. That was what I was hoping to hear. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Good. Okay, do I have to move on? Thank you, Mayor. Lisa can second. Any further discussion? Well, put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Nil. Motion carried. Come back in now, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7, Upper Queenstown landscape schedules, page 200.
Good afternoon, councillors. So this notification request follows the priority area landscape schedules variation that was subject to a council decision in early June. These schedules for this variation have been prepared so that they align with the landscape schedules of the previous variation. If you do have any technical questions about schedules, we have Bridget Gilbert, who's our landscape architect, joining us online just to help with that. Other than that, I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions.
Questions, councillors? None at all. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Cody. Seconder. Thank you, Barry. Discussion? None at all. Well, hang on. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? None. Motion carried.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you. Thank
Chief
you.
Executive's report, item 8, page 207 of your papers, councillors. Chief?
I'll take that as read. There's really the key recommendation is simply around delegating me to sign off the insurance contract for this year. Yeah.
Any questions?
General question, we're talking insurance. Do we have a rough idea of how many claims we actually make over the past 3 years? We do make claims, do we?
Yes, we do. I don't have the number to hand, but part of our insurance is also defending ourselves against claims against ourselves. So, I'm happy to go away and...
No, that's right. I'm just making sure we're not just, we do actually, whether we self-insure or whether we pay someone to insure us. Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever recommend self-insurance. Not in this district.
Oh, good idea.
Oh, yeah. Question answered.
Where are we at with the insurance strategy? I think Gareth team's working on the insurance strategy.
I'm sorry, I don't have an update. Oh, there's Gareth in the background there.
Okay. I think, is that right? I'm not imagining.
Insurance strategy was the question, Gareth.
Yeah, I'll be through you, Chair. Relatively quick. So we have 2 main periods of renewals in April and November. So we do a strategy before each of those. So if you have a look at the Chief Executive's report, it talks about bringing a strategy back for consideration by Council before we enter into the strategy. The next time for that will be prior to our November renewals.
So when will the strategy come to us? Or is the strategy not come to us? Is that
Yes, the strategy will come back to Council. There's 2 different, as I said, 2 different periods. The next one's November. So we're working with Aon and timeframes for that. As we said at the last AFR, timing is very tight. So we get information around increase in premium and any exclusion from policies very close to renewal date. That's something that every council and every organisation is experiencing across the country and internationally. So So we'll deal with that as best we can, but as the Chief Executive's report notes, we intend to come back to Council with a strategy prior to November renewal.
So there'll be an October AFRC as well as this, I imagine.
Yes, that's the intent, yeah, which is the 3rd of October.
Right, thanks. It's a little bit of a funny one, this, I'm not asking a question.
Sorry, I just get a question around Three Waters and that. If Three Waters moved away from council, would our insurance change dramatically?
There would obviously be a change in our insurance profile if it had moved away, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just dreaming, sorry.
Just know on the consequences of keeping it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, do I have a mover? Thank you, Barry. Second, Mel. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? None. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's leading into the evening.
Yes.
So I'll just put that in before I move to public excluded. So I move that the publicly excluded from the following parts of the meeting, agenda item 9. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Barry. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against?